I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and put my slides up and then if I can
There
get
we go. While she's doing that, let me introduce myself to everybody who came in a little bit later. I'm Eileen Christian. I'm on the board of Advocates Protecting Children, and I'm going to host today. So I have you all on mute right now, except for myself and Maria. And I will ask you to I'll keep track of the questions as they come in while Maria is going through her presentation. And I'd ask you to put your questions in the chat, and we'll keep track of those, and we'll take care of those at the end. So here we are. Thank you for coming. We're very happy to have you here. Maria Keffler is a co-founder of Advocates Protecting Children and the Arlington Parents Coalition in Virginia. She's an author, a speaker, and a teacher with a background in educational psychology. Maria has fought to support families and protect children from unethical activism and dangerous policies around sexuality and transgender ideology since 2018. She's the author of multiple books, including Desist, Detrans, and Detox, Getting Your Child Out of the Gender Cult. Sophia Institute Press is publishing it. And Maria lives in Arlington, Virginia, with her husband and her 3 children. And I'm excited to say that Maria is the author of a new book that's being released probably at the end of September. Is that right, Maria?
we're heading for end of August.
Oh,
Might
end of
be the beginning of
August.
September, but hopefully end of August.
It's a fabulous book called Time-Tested Parenting, Raising Healthy Kids in a Hostile World. I can tell you it's fabulous because I got a preview of it and loved it. Very valuable. So now I will turn it over to Maria. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Eileen. Thanks for the plug for the book too. I'm really excited about that book coming out. And everybody who registered today should have gotten a copy of that. It was attached to the email with the Zoom link, so you got an advanced look at it. But today we're talking about why are teenagers so vulnerable to gender ideology. There tend to be 4 main groups of people who get sucked into this, and teenage girls are by and large they're the largest group by far today. Up until I think the year was 2012. Up until 2012, it was mostly adult men who believed that they were transgender or thought they'd been born in the wrong body. But there's been a huge increase in especially teenage girls, as well as some teenage boys, and also very young children. With very young children, what we're seeing is parents really are transing those kids. But teenagers are coming home and making this announcement, and the parents are just flabbergasted. It came out of nowhere. And there's some specific reasons why they are so vulnerable to this ideology. And my slides don't want to advance with my clicker. Huh, I wonder why. Oh, because somehow I
I'm the
got
host.
onto the last slide instead of the first one. There we go. Okay. So in 2023, 5% of US teenagers identified as trans or questioned the validity of their birth sex. That was the last hard number I could find. Seems pretty sure that it's more than that today, but I had trouble finding a hard number for 2024, 2025. This is huge. The UK has the Tavistock Clinic, which I believe is still closed. It closed last year. I believe it is still closed, but they saw a 5,000% increase in teenage girls presenting with gender confusion over a 7-year period. We look at the UK because they have a national healthcare system. They have socialized healthcare, and because of that, they can track everyone. They can keep really good data. A lot of European countries have that, and they can look at data over time longitudinally. Part of the problem we have here in the US is we have privatized healthcare. We have all these hospitals, all these clinics, all these doctors, and because of HIPAA rules, it's all very, very secret. Like I can't call Inova Hospital and say, hey, how many kids did you treat for gender dysphoria last year? They don't have to tell me. But the countries like the UK and Sweden, which have national healthcare systems, they can track this. And they saw this enormous increase in teenage girls. Any place where we see that kind of a percent of increase, we know that's not natural. We know something is happening. Gender ideologues, trans rights advocates will say, oh, that's just because we're finally getting it out of the closet and people are finally feeling free to say who they really are. No, 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 that's baloney. You would never see that kind of an increase naturally. Something else is going on. And 20% of trans-identified people in the US are 13 to 17, although only 8% of the general population are age 13 to 17. So that also tells us something's going on when this large segment of this trans-identified population are teenagers. So what do we need to look at? What's happening with teenagers? First, we need to recognize what's going on with teenagers naturally and normally. Identity formation is what's happening from about age 12 into your 20s. That's when you're figuring out who you are. Who are you going to be? Are you going to be a jock or a brain? Are you going to be somebody who is athletic, works with their body, or somebody who likes to read and spend time, doing things on the computer? Are you a friendly, outgoing person, or are you an introvert? All of those questions are getting answered in your teens. Also, there are three things that teens need and are desperate for, and that's meaning, belonging, and autonomy. And we're going to go over all these things. This is kind of my outline for today. Um, so we're going to look at identity. We're going to look at those three things teens need, meaning, belonging, and autonomy. And then we're also seeing significant mental health issues happening with teens around the world, as well as autism, trauma, social power, and peer pressure as reasons that kids are buying into gender ideology. So let's look at the adolescent identity formation. There's a guy named Erik Erikson. He posited that over the course of our lives, we have 8 developmental crises. When I learned this back in the 80s, they were called crises. Today, they call them something else. I don't remember what they call them now, something like events. But he would say that we all go through these, and this has been pretty well accepted in psychology for decades. When you're born until you're about a year old, the crisis is trust versus mistrust. If you have good caregivers who take care of your needs, they feed you when you're hungry, they change you when you're dirty, they give you love and affection, you learn to trust other people. If you don't have healthy caregivers who give you the things you need, you learn to be a mistrustful person. From about a year to 3 years, you're learning autonomy versus shame and doubt. You're trying to feed yourself. These are the toddler years, and anybody who's raised a child, you know the I do it. It's the I do it phase. There's a great, I wish I would have pulled it to show it today. There's an adorable video that went around on social media a while ago. A little girl, about 2.5, 3 years old, and she's trying to put her own seatbelt on in her car seat. And the dad is videotaping her from the driver's seat, and he's saying, do you want some help with that? She's like, no, I do it. You drive the car. You drive the car. You drive, I do it. I'm like, that's just perfect. And the way he responded was great. She's trying to take that autonomy. She's trying to do things herself. He didn't say, knock it off. We're in a hurry. Stop it. You can't do this. He let her try. And I don't think we saw the result of it. I'm sure he had to go help her because I don't think any 3-year-old can put on that 5-point harness by themselves. But he was helping her develop autonomy, helping her to do the things that she could do without embarrassing her, hurting her, telling her that, no, you're not capable of doing this. 3 to 6 years, initiative versus guilt. They're starting to want to do work. These are the years when they want to help you unload the dishwasher, where they want to go out and rake the leaves, where they want to try to do things by themselves. It's a little bit more advanced than the autonomy. They're actually trying to go out in the world and interact with it. And if parents encourage that and help scaffold them toward being able to do these things by themselves or praise them, thank you so much for unloading the dishwasher. And don't say, you put everything in the wrong place. That would be moving them toward the guilt side, but just saying, thank you so much for doing that. You did a great job. 6 years to puberty, industry versus inferiority. They're going to school. Are they being able to do their homework? Are they succeeding at school? Are they making friends or are they not knowing how to develop friendships? So they either feel they have become competent or are becoming competent, or they feel inferior to their peers. Then we hit the teens, and this is the identity versus role confusion. Middle school, high school, early college, people are trying to figure out who they are. What do I like? What kind of person am I? What am I going to do with my life? And that's where teens are, and that's what they're examining. When I was in high school, I tried being an athlete. In junior high, I tried out for the basketball team. Anybody who knows me now just laughs when I tell them that because I'm like dyslexic when it comes to sports. But I didn't know that at the time, so I was trying it, trying on all these different identities. But now what we're seeing is this ideology is all about identity. Who are you? You get to tell the world who you are. Okay, yes, we do get to tell the world who we are, but we don't get to defy reality in order to do that. But this ideology really attacks kids right where they are in that identity search. If anybody has questions about any of this, just put them in the chat. I'm doing a really high like flyover of this stuff because I want to get through it quickly and then get to any questions. But I'm going to move on now into the main needs of adolescents. Again, they're searching for identity, but they need really three things during the adolescent and teen years. They need meaning. What is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What is the value of being here? What am I going to do with my time? They need to feel belonging. They need to feel like they have friendships. Um, Although teens start pulling away from their parents and families at this time because they're starting to move toward independence and adulthood, that doesn't mean the family is any less important. They need, at their core, to know I am a son, I am a daughter, I'm a sibling, I'm a friend, I belong to this club. This is why clubs proliferate in school. Everyone wants to belong to a group. They need to have that sense of companionship. And then they also need to have autonomy. Um, I try not to talk too much about my own kids because they don't like it when I talk about them a lot. But my youngest daughter is a senior in high school. And if there were one word that we've dealt with for the past 4 years, it's been autonomy. She wants to be autonomous, be the captain of her own destiny. And that's so normal. Because again, they're starting to move away from the safety of home and the safety of their parents' control and move out into the world. And the parents are negotiating that right along with them. Okay, you're perfectly safe to walk across the street by yourself. I don't need to hold your hand anymore. Oh, now you've got a driver's license and you're going to take the car. Okay, I'm good with you driving on the neighborhood roads, but not the highway. Those are those negotiations that we're dealing with where the kids are always kind of pushing for more independence and autonomy. And the parents are like, yes, I want you to have that, but I also want you to be safe. Trans hits all of these. The gender ideology, it offers a maladaptive coping way of answering all these three questions. What is the meaning? Meaning is what you make. You decide on your own meaning, and everybody else has to agree with you and support you in that, or else they're toxic. Where do I belong? Oh, if you're trans, you belong with us. We've got this really tight-knit GSA, Gender and Sexuality Allies Club, and we're all allies. And if you're not an ally, you're an enemy. Ooh, Where have we heard that kind of language? That's kind of warlike language, right? But it really hits this belonging. And then the autonomy. Kids are told if people don't agree with what you say about yourself, then they're toxic. They're holding you back. They're hurting you, and you need to cut them off. Really nefarious the way that this ideology gives an underhanded, unhelpful, hurtful answer to all of these things that teens are dealing with every day. Going on to mental health issues. The vast majority of people who get sucked into this ideology seem to have something else going on. We're generally not seeing the healthy, well-adjusted kids falling into this when we're talking about the teenage years. If you look at this graph, you can see this is the age of onset of mental health disorders. So if you look at the very left side, which is 10 years, very few mental health disorders showing up in those very early years. But then in the teen years, you've got the bipolar showing up, PTSD, depression, anxiety, all of those are skyrocketing during the teenage years. And if you look at this mental health issues chart, teens who are experiencing major depression, girls, we have seen such a huge increase in girls with depression, boys as well. But that line there at 2012, I know everybody's muted, so I'm not going to ask. Just answer for yourself if you know. What was happening right around that time in 2012? Cell phones. Smartphones were exploding at that time. I believe that year in the UK, 80% of 11-year-olds had smartphones. So we're seeing all of these mental health issues increasing with smartphone use. I really encourage people to try to prevent their kids having phones as long as you can and get them the dumb phones, get them the flip phones, because the smartphones just open up a world of issues that teens shouldn't have to deal with. But anyway, these mental health issues are also driving kids getting sucked into gender ideology. So they're depressed. Um, Depression can have biological bases. It can also have environmental bases. If you're tired all the time, you're not getting enough sleep, your parents have divorced, you have a breakup with your friend group, all kinds of things can lead to depression. And then gender ideology comes along and offers you, again, those things you're looking for. It's offering you belonging, it's offering you meaning, it's offering you autonomy, and it's saying these are the things that you need to get out of your depression. Anxiety. Kids are so stressed today. Um, I taught high school just up until this year. I just decided I'm not going back this year, but I've been teaching high school for the last several years. And the level of anxiety that I see in kids is so frightening, and they're worried about everything. And they're coming to school anxious about their grades, anxious about their families, anxious about their friendships. ADD, attention deficit disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's often comorbid, meaning it occurs at the same time with other things like autism. But all of these mental health issues, trans can come along and say, oh, you're having that problem because you're actually trans and you're trying to live a life that's not genuine. Transition, become queer, and then you'll be authentic and all of these problems will go away. And they don't, because they're real problems. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is something we see in teens a lot. Um, Psychotropic drugs. I think I have the wrong word there. I was thinking about this last night and I meant to come in and change it. What I'm talking about is psychiatric drugs, drugs that are prescribed to kids for things like depression, anxiety, anti-anxiety drugs, antidepressants. Um, a lot of kids are on things. I'm pretty shocked when we would go on a field trip, the school nurse, she had a duffel bag, a full-on duffel bag, so she could carry all of the prescriptions that these kids are taking. And a friend of mine pointed out recently that we don't really know a lot about how these psychiatric drugs affect young brains. But one thing we do know, antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds can depress your libido. I had postpartum depression after one of my kids. I was on Zoloft for a year, and it just flattened my libido. It flattened my emotions altogether, which was what I needed because I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and rage, and so it helped me there. But for a whole year, I had no libido at all. For an adult woman, that's fine. My husband and I can deal with that. But when you're a teenager and everybody around you is starting to have, a sexual awakening, because that's part of what happens in puberty, is you start maturing sexually. But if you're on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety med, and you may not even realize, I think most people don't realize what it does to your libido, suddenly you think something's wrong with you. I really think so many of these people who say they're asexual because they have no sexual feelings may be on some of these psychiatric drugs. Autism is a huge one. Some predictions or estimates are putting it at 65 to 75% of teens and kids who believe that they are on the gender spectrum actually exhibit autistic traits. And there are some very specific things about autism that makes autistic kids especially vulnerable to this. They tend to be socially awkward. Autism comes from the words auto, which means self, like automobile is a self-driving, is a car that motivates itself, or it doesn't drive itself, but you're not pushing it. You don't have to pull it with a horse. So autoism is selfism. It's like just being turned inward and kind of focused on your own interests. And they don't really know how to do the things that make them friendships. So autistic kids tend to be a little socially awkward, even if they can hide it. A lot of girls who are diagnosed with autism are really good at hiding it. They think that that might be why so many more boys are diagnosed than girls, because girls are just a little better relationally. My older daughter is on the spectrum. She has high functioning autism, and she's told me, she's like, if I don't know what to do in a situation, I'll just look around and see what everybody else is doing, and I'll mimic them. That's a really great coping strategy that sometimes a lot of boys, especially young boys, aren't going to think of. Even if they're doing those things, though, they're not feeling those things. They're sort of intentionally mimicking them. So they have that social awkwardness. They tend to have verbal challenges. Especially at the young ages, developing language is one of the struggles that they have. They have a lot of sensory sensitivities. My daughter's fifth grade teacher has a son of his own who's a little bit more profoundly autistic. And he said these kids go through their day and it's like they've got a marble in one shoe and they got one long sleeve and one short sleeve and they've got a drip of water on their head and the whole earth is just slightly off kilter, and that's how they're going through their day. Um, sensory challenges like not liking the feel of your clothes or being hyper aware of the tag in the back of your shirt. These are things that are often coming alongside with the autism diagnosis. Again, gender comes along and said, "Oh, you're uncomfortable in your body because you're actually born in the wrong body. You're actually trying to live as a boy, but you're actually a girl. You're going to feel a lot better when you transition," which is not true. That's not the problem. Black and white thinking is one of the hallmarks of autistic kids. They are not good at nuance or gray areas. It's all this or it's all that. It's left or it's right. It's up or it's down. And so they'll spend a long time thinking about something. And once they've made a decision, it's very hard to change their minds. So they get into thinking about gender. They've heard about gender. They start thinking about it. People around them are saying, "Oh, yeah, you're socially awkward because you're trying to relate to boys and you're actually a girl." And they have these verbal challenges that, with expressing what they're actually thinking and how they're feeling, the sensory sensitivities, and then they say, you know what, this must be what it is. I must be autistic. I'm sorry, I must be actually born in the wrong body. And they make that decision, and then they really perseverate on it. Perseveration is another hallmark of autism, where they have a preferred activity or something that they just seem to obsess about. The boy in the picture, this is a classic autism trope that they have a puzzle or they have a picture or something, and they've just focused on that to the exclusion of everything else. So some of these kids who get sucked into gender, it becomes an obsession or a perseveration. One therapist, a very good therapist, told this mom, I think your daughter's going to be fine, but she's going to have to come through her perseveration on gender. This is her obsession right now. She's going to have to get all the way through it. It may take a year, may take longer than that, but she's got to get through it before she can get off of it. So those are some of the features of autism that make autistic kids particularly vulnerable to gender messages. Kids who have trauma. I want to really stress everybody who gets sucked into gender ideology, everybody, they are looking for an answer. They're in pain. They're having some sort of a problem that they're trying to find an answer for. And so I really want to stress that if you're going through this with a child, there's something in that child's life that's causing him or her discomfort, pain, stress, and he or she is looking for an answer. Gender comes in and says, we're the answer for everything. Change your gender and then you'll be happy. And we know that's not true. But I really want to stress having compassion for anybody who's going through this. I'm often told that I hate trans people and I want them to die. And I challenge people, find a place where I've said something like that. I don't hate them at all. Anybody who's transgender identified is suffering and is trying to find an answer for why do I feel this way. So trauma is another one. Kids who've been through divorce or abandonment, any kind of abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, bullying. They've gotten bullied at school. Again, why don't I have friends? Why don't people like me? What's wrong with me? That's probably the question that teenagers, adolescents, and teenagers ask more than anything else is what's wrong with me? Why am I not like everybody else? And they don't know yet that everybody feels that way. Everybody feels that way coming through those years. Very rarely do I come across somebody who says they loved middle and high school years. I gave a talk, Eileen, I think it was actually the talk in Pennsylvania at your church, where I said, there were like, I don't know, 200 people there. And I said, who here liked middle school? One person raised their hand and said, I love middle school. I didn't say anything, but I kind of wanted to go, you must have been the bully, because most of us don't enjoy middle school. There's lots of things that feel like trauma. One other thing I want to say about childhood trauma, as adults, we can be really quick to sort of ignore and dismiss the pain that kids and teenagers are feeling. Oh, your boyfriend broke up with you. It was just, you've only dated a couple of months. Get over it. Don't worry about it. We need to remember we're adults who have had experiences and we have um, a lot of experiences that have taught us how to deal with things. For kids, when they're dating somebody, that first boyfriend or girlfriend, when they break up, that's earth-shattering. They've never been broken up with before. They had this magical thinking that this was going to go on forever. Really try to have empathy for kids because this is the first time they're dealing with these things. And even if it seems kind of trivial to us, it doesn't seem trivial to them. Moving from one place to another can be quite traumatic, especially if you've lost a friend group. If you haven't watched Inside Out, the first and the second one, they're both good, but especially the first one, oh, watch it. Inside Out, she moves. Her family picks up, moves from Minnesota to San Francisco, and that is a huge trauma. She lost her favorite activity, which was hockey. She lost her friend group. She lost her home. And we tend to look at that as parents and go, oh, but you've got new friends and new home and new stuff. but it's a loss. It's a significant loss. And again, kids are like, why am I so unhappy? Why am I so miserable? As adults, we can say, well, of course you're unhappy. You moved. You lost a lot. You lost your church. You lost your home. You lost your friends. This is normal. Gender ideology comes in and says, oh, you're unhappy because you're trans. I can't stress enough how nefarious this ideology and the activists are. They will seize upon any pain that someone has to tell them that they need to transition genders. And yeah, we talked about a breakup. A significant breakup can be a trauma for kids. And then just social power and peer pressure is so hard at this age. Everybody's looking at you, everybody's watching you. You just want to fit in, you want to be like everybody else. Brainwashing techniques. Um, Cults do 8 things to attract and recruit and retain their members, and trans hits every single one of them. I'm not going to spend time going into that right now, but if you want to, we can talk about that later. But a lot of the brainwashing techniques have to do with kind of forcing you to go along with the crowd, get you in a group. One of the things they do is love bomb. They get somebody new into the group. You're so amazing. You're so wonderful. Oh my gosh, you're so cool. And that feels so good. And you want to keep that. And you'll do what you need to do to keep that if you feel a deficit in your attractiveness, your friend group, not feeling like you're loved enough. The ally or enemy, I touched on that a little bit earlier, that language. Are you an ally? Because if you're not an ally, you're an enemy. Nobody wants to be an enemy, especially in middle school and high school. Nobody wants to be the only one in the blue shirt. This is really a cult of kindness. I'm sure everybody has heard, just be kind. Can't you just be nice? Just be kind. Well, we've got to start asking ourselves, what does that mean? What is kindness? According to gender ideology, kindness is never telling somebody something they don't want to hear. It's not kind to tell somebody you don't agree with them. Well, if we look at something like anorexia, is it kind to agree with an anorexic? If a child is starving herself and she's, 5'6" and weighs 98 pounds, is it kind to say, oh, yes, you really are fat. Yes, let's get you gastric bypass surgery. Yes, you absolutely should diet. That's not kind at all. That's going to kill her. Same thing with something like schizophrenia. Should we tell a schizophrenic, oh, yes, those voices that you're hearing, those are real. Yes, you should do what they say. That's not kind. Those voices may be telling him to go jump off a bridge. That's the wrong thing. So we need to ask ourselves, what is the definition of these words? Gender has really promoted this cult of kindness in our culture that you can never tell somebody something they don't want to hear. Well, if you've raised a child, you know you often have to tell that child things that he or she doesn't want to hear. It's called good parenting. It's called honesty. It's called being a good human being. Peer-led sex ed is just, it makes me so angry every time I even see the words. The first time I came across peer-led sex ed, it's when they will have slightly older kids come into a health class. Once here in Arlington, they had someone come into a HILT class, high impact language training. That is for kids who are new immigrants who don't have basic English skills. They take these HILT classes to try to get their English up enough so that they can succeed in school. They had an older child who spoke Spanish come into a HILT class and do a gender and sexuality presentation. So I hear this term like peer-led sex ed. What does this remind me of? And it took me a couple weeks before I figured it out. And it was peer-to-peer sales. They have co-opted the peer sales technique. And that's where your friend invites you over to her house and has tapas and drinks. And then she shows you all these candles. And wouldn't you like to buy a candle? And you feel like you need to buy a candle because she's your friend and she gave you some appetizers. Well, this is what they're doing with sex ed. They're having older students come in, and the amount of pressure behind that. Think back to when you were a freshman in high school. I'm a freshman in high school. I remember being incredibly awkward, feeling like my high school was huge. Do I fit in? What if I still have dreams, by the way, that I can't remember my locker combination. So you're in your gym class and a senior comes in. Imagine one of the seniors when you were a freshman, and the teacher says, "Oh, hey, this student's going to tell you some really interesting stuff." And the student starts telling you all about sexuality and gender. Are you going to stand up and say, "I don't agree with this"? No, you're going to sit there and listen because that kid has been given authority by the teacher to speak. That kid's 2, 3 years older than you are, and everybody else thinks that kid's amazing because he or she's a senior. So it's actually using peer pressure and social conformity to get kids to buy into this stuff. So I went through that stuff pretty quickly. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share because I want to move to the Q&A section, and I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the wrong place. Where's stop share? There we go. Now I'm back. Sorry that I kind of sped through that, but gosh, it did take me almost 40 minutes. Um, so anything, am I right? Was that about half an hour, 40 minutes?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Half hour.
So Eileen, were there
So
questions in the chat
I
yet?
don't have any questions in the chat.
Okay.
I
We're
just
a pretty small group, so I mean,
yeah.
if you want to just unmute and we can just have a chat if you like.
It says chat disabled.
Oh goodness.
Oh no. Well, that would probably be my
Okay.
fault.
Uh, let. How about I unmute everyone as soon as I. Let's see. I can. Everybody can unmute themselves. It seems.
You should be able to unmute yourself just on your screen.
Yes. Yes. So if you'd like to ask questions, yes, you can unmute yourself on the screen. I had one comment, Maria. When you were talking about the autistic child or the child on the spectrum, one of my children, I have two daughters, young adults now. One is on the spectrum, and one thing that took me far too long to understand is that those traumas that, yes, the average parent with the neurotypical kid, the quote unquote normal kid, not on the spectrum, it's hard for we parents to understand those traumas because we have to transport ourselves back to adolescence. But with a kid on the spectrum, it's difficult to really appreciate that what we perceive as what would be a trauma, um, or what would be typical, the average kid on the spectrum finds it to be, you know, life ending. It's
Mm.
talk about dramatic. It's very dramatic. So the things that impact the autistic kid and set them down the path perhaps of gender ideology susceptibility is far different than the neurotypical kid in my experience.
And I think that's why we see so many autistic kids. Again, they're saying like 65 to 75% of kids who say that they're trans either have an autism diagnosis or they exhibit some autistic traits. And of course, the gender people will say that, oh, being autistic means you're more likely to be trans. No, I disagree with that. You can't assume causality there. You can see a correlation, but I think the reason we're seeing so many autistic kids is because of those things I mentioned, those specific traits that lend them to thinking maybe I'm this way because I'm trans, not maybe I'm this way because I'm autistic.
Right. Right. So Ted, can I unmute you? And it looks like you raised your hand. Or can you unmute yourself? You want to ask a
Yeah,
question?
I did. Thank you all very much. More than you want to know. I did live 12 years transgender, and Jesus saved my soul about 4 years ago. and I'm also a good friend with Aaron Brewer. So thank you for doing this.
I saw your name and I recognized. Yeah, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. But I was wondering, can we get a copy of these slides? Do you
Yes.
prefer not to? I
No, no, no,
understand.
I don't mind at all. We're
Thank
gonna
you.
put the recording on our website, and I'm happy to put a PDF of the slides so that you can download them from there. That's fine.
Is the chat enabled now? Patty, do you have a question? Did you want to?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted to talk without showing everyone my face, even though I have poofy hair right now. Hi, everyone.
Lovely.
Hi, Patty.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's so incredibly important. I too I presented in the masculine. I never identified as a man, but I identified as a person,
Mm,
what would now probably be they, them. And gay for many years, and got saved in 2003, gave my heart to Christ,
that's wonderful.
and have a ministry now called Out of Egypt Ministries. And you are just so spot on with everything that I experienced, but also that I share. And some of the things that I've also noticed and I've put on my website is, I can't find it in my notes, but or maybe it was something I was reading this morning, I can't remember. But just health, like when it comes to health, were you talking about being on, oh, the psych meds?
Yeah.
I don't know where I wrote it, but those medications have so many side effects, and a lot of them hit you in the gut, in the bowel area, in digestion, and in all of that. And that affects our emotions. When our digestion is off, it also affects our emotions. And I'm curious if a lot of these kids with the junk even that we're eating now is affecting them in the gut and then making them anxious, having
Mm,
health anxiety or body anxiety because of how they feel. And then also with the video games that they watch, there's so much sexual abuse on Xbox and video games. And I was sharing someplace and I was talking about that. And this young lady in her early 20s came to me and said that she was sexually abused online for a number of years, and her predator came to her through Pinterest.
mm.
I believe
Pinterest. Gosh, you
Pinterest.
think of Pinterest as so like sweet. Oh
Yep.
my
So she
gosh.
typed in something, innocent, I think about a recipe or whatever. And these predators know to look for words. Anyways, the predator came in and she explained some of the things that he did to her online, and it was 100% sexual abuse. So I think we also should be aware of that.
Yeah.
But even like when I have downtime and I'm playing solitaire or something on my phone, um, and if you don't win the little game that we're playing on our phone, you get anxious, like,
Mm,
oh, my time is running out or whatever. So all that to say, I think there's astronomical reasons that our kids are being inundated
yeah.
with the food and even with simple games that
Yeah.
they're playing on their phone. And so I just
Yeah.
wanted to share. I'm sorry if I took
No,
too long, but I just
no,
wanted
no,
to
no. That's all important. And you're right. Our body, our soul, our mind, it's all intertwined. And there's just so much attacking kids and families from every side. It can feel really overwhelming. But I think those are all good points.
thank you. Thank you for all that you do. It means so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I see a question. Okay. The long name that you can unmute yourself. I see the hand
Hi,
raised.
yeah, sorry, I forgot
There
about
you
that.
are.
This is Christy. I don't know what happened to my computer, but my question is this. My son, when he was 14, told us that he's trans, and now he's 16, and we're still, every day is a struggle. A huge part of the issue is that he keeps asking me why why do I think that I know more than the doctors? Because we've had a lot of doctors that assure him that he's really born in the wrong body. He's supposed to be a woman.
Mm,
And I'm not a doctor, I'm just a mom. And I know things politically in the United States are changing. However, I cannot go to a doctor appointment without them bringing it up every
Yeah.
single time. So I just wondered if he's autistic too.
Mm.
So I was just wondering, like, is there any chance for him to get out of this with all that going on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is always hope, especially the fact that he's still in your home and under 18. If you still, you still have that amount of control. So don't give up. Don't give up. There are good doctors out there. I don't remember where you are, but I would do everything I could to find a non-affirming pediatrician. Somebody who understands the truth. If you're arguing with him, that question, why do you think you know more than the doctors? You can bring up a few things. Well, doctors used to prescribe cigarettes for people to calm their nerves. That was a thing. Like they did that back in the 50s. They would prescribe cigarettes. We know now that that's not healthy, but back then, doctors were saying that. Doctors also prescribed thalidomide for morning sickness in the 60s. And we have a whole generation of babies that were born damaged, deformed because of thalidomide. Doctors often think they know things and then find out later that they don't. So doctors are not gods. The most recent example of that is the opioid crisis. Doctors were handing out opioids like candy and telling people they couldn't get addicted, and now we have an opioid crisis. So those are just some things just to load you up with some responses when he claims that the doctors know more than you do. You say, well, I've seen throughout my life a number of times where the doctors thought they knew something and found out that it was wrong. But I would, while you've got him under 18, try to surround him with as much truth and protection as you can. Find the non-affirming doctor. Yes, there's absolutely still hope.
There is a trustworthy organization, American College of Pediatricians. One of our board members is a pediatrician, also a member of that association. So I don't know, but they may have the ability to locate doctors who would not be affirming, but they are very non-affirming, a non-affirming group of pediatricians on that association.
Thank you for mentioning that, Eileen.
Yeah, thank you both. Those are great ideas. We do have him seeing a therapist in Sweden right now because I couldn't find any around here that would go along with reality. I mean, it sounds weird, but it's true. So
No. Yeah, we
we're
know.
not going to give up.
Yeah, we talk to parents all the time we used to try to help people find therapists, and it just got kind of overwhelming. But there are, if I'm glad you found somebody who you feel is trustworthy. But that's really part of the strategy, getting kids out of this. It's really applying a deprogramming strategy. And one of the important things is surrounding them with people who are going to tell them the truth and trying to keep people who are going to lie to them away from them. So you've still got time. So
Right.
Yeah.
And part of the black and white thinking of a teen on the spectrum, maybe it would resonate with him to mention the money to be made by many doctors and big pharma by this ideology and promoting it. Maybe that would add a little perspective that would give him something to think about.
Mm.
So, and Ted, I see. Okay, Ted, you have your hand raised. So
Yeah, I'm back again. I just want to beat on the bandwagon of trauma. I've recently come across a book. It's called TINSA. And one of the things that I'm working on right now is a detransitioner. Is I believe we're going to have a huge wave of people coming out of let's call it the Rainbow Rebellion.
Mm.
And I take my paradigm from a Christian worldview. So I'm trying to figure out, get ahead of it, what can I do to vector people towards help? And I'm finding I haven't got there yet, but I think a good start is like the 12 steps. And one of the groups I belong to is called Awaken, and they just focus on pornography.
Mm,
But I'm just beginning to understand the effects of trauma are so much more devastating. And what you said about autistic children, which I can confirm because I have friends that have that have children that are Asperger's syndrome, I believe, that are being trans, and it breaks my heart. But, that's just a huge area of trauma that, we don't need to take lightly. It has a much more detrimental effect on people, not only go down to the trans or same-sex attraction, but it can be any addictive thing. It could be drugs, alcohol, pornography, just so much. But this is just one of the avenues that people, go down when they, as you say, have a hole in their soul. So
yeah.
more than I wanted to say, but I just wanted to let you know about that book, TINSA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I really think trance is just a maladaptive coping technique. I said that to a room full of teachers, school counselors, and principals one time, and you would have thought I shot all their dogs right in front of them. I'm like, but more and more, the more parents I talk to, the longer I'm in this, I just think this is a maladaptive coping technique. It's trying to deal with some sort of a pain, or as Ted said, a hole in your soul that you're just trying to fill. And again, gender comes along and says, whatever problem you're having, gender's going to fix it for you. And these poor kids just get sucked in. All right, we're coming up on 2 o'clock. Are there any more quick questions before we call it a day?
I have a question. I am a functional medicine certified health coach, a national board certified health coach. And, I see a lot of organizations for mental health as well as health, like we were all talking about, where they're doing this gender affirming care, and just wondering your ideas. It's weighed on my mind and heart. How can we develop collaborations where we provide mental health with the truth, right? And because a lot of those platforms only push one direction versus, us out there protecting the children. So just, how do we change this on a bigger scope? What are your thoughts?
I mean, the lawsuits are happening. I think the lawsuits are going to turn things around a lot. Getting therapists and doctors unchained from these policies, that would help, because I know a lot of therapists, doctors are afraid to do anything but push the trans because they'll lose their licenses if they don't. So on more of a global macro level, that's what needs to happen. We need to get policies changed. We need to have institutions moving toward truth rather than toward lies. I think we're starting to see those things happen. Again, unfortunately, we're a very litigious country. And so in America, it seems to have to happen at the court level. But I think that is happening more. Eileen, do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, I see the tide turning. I see so much of it coming out of the professional associations and what they are pushing. And I've heard many therapists talk about how they do not agree with the gender affirming model, but they're afraid to promote themselves that way when they're trying to discuss it in open, because their licenses are on the line. I do see the tide turning, though.
Yeah.
It's glacial pace, though, but I think it's happening.
I was encouraged. I went to a school board meeting last night here in my district. It's the first one I've been to in 6 years. 6 years ago, we were fighting the policies as they were putting it in, and there was one or two speakers out of like 45 in the comments section who were on the side of sanity, and all the others, you know, had their pride flags and they were pushing it. Well, when I went on Thursday night, about every fourth speaker was speaking sanity, and that's 25%, but that's huge. That's a huge change from only one or two out of 45 to, you know, 25%. So I agree with Eileen. I see the tide changing. This is a house of cards. It's just built on lies, and it can't stand forever. And I think the holes are starting to get poked in it, and more people are waking up.
Right. And sadly, more and more kids are in the wake of this are getting
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. Alicia, were you gonna say something else?
Oh, just thank you for your work, and yeah, it's I know it's affirming for me too, connecting with other, connecting with doctors and therapists and people like you, and other organizations that are out there, telling the truth and trying to make a difference. So I appreciate all of your encouragement, and yeah, together we can do a lot more, right?
We can.
right,
We can. Yep. Yep.
for sure.
Yeah.
Ted, I thank you for the applause. Maria, I don't know if you saw Ted's applause, but thank you for that. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It was great to see you. We're going to put this on the website. I can send out an email and with a link when we do that. Give us a day or two. Yeah, but thank you for coming.
Thanks for being here.
I don't think we have another webinar scheduled right now. We had one we were hoping in September that fell through, but we'll let you know when the next one's going to be.
Thank you all.
Thank
Take care.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Do you want to